Hey guys, this is us Spooner, and today we're going to hijack Matty Z28's YouTube channel to show you how to make a Kydex cover for your Steyr AUG. The reason we're doing this is because the ejection port cover tends to fall off on these and that can cause a malfunction, and because when you're shooting, when it ejects brass, it'll scuff up your stock and cause little divots and whatnot in it. And I just want to protect my stock from that. And as a bonus, we're also going to make a brass deflector. That way you guys that like to shoot left-handed don't eat a face full of brass when you shoot an AUG. So when I first started this project, the very first thing I knew I wanted to do was make a jig so that way I could hold up my stock to put the Kydex on and mold it. For that, all I needed was I had some 3/4 inch plywood laying around and a 2x4. All I did is I had a Sawzall, a 4-inch angle grinder, and a drill. And you can see on here I took the Sawzall and I used it to actually cut the little divots for holding the actual stock. This on the rear is for holding the bottom of the butt, and those two towers are for holding the pistol grip to prevent any too much lateral movement. All I did is cut everything out with the Sawzall, and if I needed any fine tuning, I actually used the 4-inch angle grinder for it. And then I just screwed everything in through the bottom. When you do this, it's important that you drill your pilot holes for it. That way you don't split any of the 2x4 or the plywood. And for that, I just used a 7/64 drill bit. I drilled straight through and I did everything all at once. After I was done making the jig, today I decided that it was time to actually mold my piece of Kydex. For that, you won't need the Sawzall or the angle grinder or the drill. And you won't actually need any power tools at all. The only thing you'll actually need, that I needed, was I had my jig. This is one of the vacuum seal Ziploc bags that you can get from Walmart. This is the large size. It's 21.5 inches by 33.5 inches. And then you also need a vacuum. That way you can suck all the air out. And there's a little vacuum port right there. The vacuum just attaches straight to it and it sucks all the air out and pretty much holds itself. And they have a neat little fast zip. That way you don't have to sit there and try and run your finger across it. That just slides back and forth. Go once one way, once the other, and it's good to go. So what I actually did to start out was, what I'd gotten from doing a lot of research is you want to preheat whatever you're going to use to mold, which for me was my actual stock. And everybody that I'd found was using heat guns. Well, I don't have a heat gun. I either have to use an oxyacetylene torch or a heated blanket. So I went with the heated blanket, that way I didn't melt my stock. I just wrapped it up. I did that about an hour before I started actually to put my Kydex in the oven. So my AUG was sitting in the heated blanket on high for an hour before I put my Kydex in the oven, up until about 5 minutes before I took my Kydex out of the oven. When I went to go put my Kydex in the oven, the lowest our oven went was 170 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that's the lowest that I went to. I took the Kydex, this started out as a 12-inch by 12-inch piece, and I put it on a pizza pan with foil on it. Well, the pan wasn't exactly 12 inches wide. It was an 11 by 18 pan basically. So I flipped it over and put foil on what would be the bottom of the pan. I just laid the Kydex on top and it worked perfectly fine. I started out at 170, and since this is 1/8 inch thick Kydex, I figured it's probably going to take a little bit longer to heat up. So I let it sit in the oven at 170 for about 5 minutes after it got preheated. And then once it got preheated, I basically rose the temperature a degree a minute. Every 5 or 10 minutes, I would go back to the oven, and I'd bump it up 5 or 10 degrees. And I did that until I got all the way up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which is where I'd found through researching that most people prefer to keep their Kydex at when they're doing projects like this. Some people say that you can put it up at 300. I didn't go up that far. Like I said, I just went to 500. I let it soak at 500 for about 15 minutes. Then I bumped it up to 260, let it sit there for 5 minutes, and then I bumped it up to 265. And I basically let the Kydex cook at 265 for another 20 minutes. The whole process actually took me about an hour and a half. And then about 5 minutes before I took my Kydex out, I started getting everything set up. I got my Ziploc bag set up, I got the vacuum set up, and I took my Steyr AUG stock out of the heated blanket, and I put it on my jig, and I prepped it so that way I could just slide it into the Ziploc bag once I threw the Kydex over it and turn the vacuum on. After that, that's exactly what you do. You shut off the oven, pull the Kydex out. I took the Kydex, centered it on the stock, and then I took the entire jig and I shoved it into a Ziploc bag, zipped it shut, turned on the vacuum, and the vacuum bag will suck everything up to the size of this here. And then you just sit and wait for it to cool. And you can sit there and you can actually press the Kydex down and try and get a little bit more definition once it's forming to some of this. And then you just let it sit till it's cool. And then once done, you get something that looks kind of like this. And I'll make a second part. I'll show you what this is going to look like once I actually cut everything out of here and stick it back on the AUG and reassemble everything. So thanks for watching, guys.